Do you remember when this famous comedian got robbed for $12 million? Now, this whole story starts with this guy, Dane. And Dane's around 16 during this time, living in Boston, and his family is struggling. They're surviving on welfare and food stamps. But one day, he decides he's gonna get himself and his family out of the struggle. And he's gonna do it by becoming famous in the comedy world. So, over the next few years, he spends all his time trying to be a comedian. Like every night, he's working on his material in local comedy clubs, and by the time he's in his 20s, Dane is spending every single night working the scene trying to make this happen. And he does this for years.
There was a big naked white guy, no pee-pee. He had nothing down there.
But then, in 1998, he finally gets a bit of a break. He gets a stand-up segment on Comedy Central. Then, in 2000, he gets his own half-hour special.
I wish I was a snake. Dude, you ever wish you were a snake?
And of course, being on TV helps promote his live shows, so now he's making a little bit of money. And with some of this money, he wants to make sure his family is taken care of. And so he buys his mom a nice house. But he also wants to help out this guy, Darryl. Darryl is Dane's half-brother and his very close friend. They actually grew up together. And so Dane goes to Darryl and he's like, "Hey, you want a job? I could pay you to be my business manager or something." And even though Darryl really doesn't have much experience with this stuff, Dane really wants to help him out. So Darryl hears this offer and he's like, "All right." And he comes on board as business manager, and Dane pays him a salary, and Darryl handles a lot of Dane's finances and makes sure his taxes are paid on time and stuff. So this deal works great for both of them. Then, in 2002, Dane does something completely unheard of at the time. He starts taking advantage of the internet, which is the norm now, but stand-up comics aren't doing this in 2002. But Dane is smart. He makes a website, and he's like posting footage of his stand-up shows, and through this, he starts getting an even bigger fan base. Then, in 2004, he starts a MySpace page. Remember MySpace? One of the first really big social media platforms? Again, stand-up comics were not doing this at the time. But Dane does it, and this gives him tons of visibility, and suddenly, kaboom, his career blows the fuck up. And now he's everywhere, and he has millions of followers, his comedy albums are going platinum, he's performing at Madison Square Garden, sometimes twice in one night, and suddenly Dane is far from being the welfare kid he started out as. Now he's one of the biggest comedians in the world, and everyone around him is super happy for him and very supportive. Until... well, not everyone is very supportive. Darryl, his business manager, his half-brother, his longtime close friend, Darryl sees his younger brother experiencing all this success and making all these millions of dollars, and at some point, he starts to think that maybe he's entitled to some of it. And Dane already pays him $150,000 a year salary, but that's apparently not enough for Darryl. He wants more. And instead of asking his brother for a raise like a normal person, he decides he's just gonna steal it. So he gets to work and he starts wiring money from Dane's business accounts right into his own personal account. And he writes fake checks from Dane to himself. And Darryl is good at covering his tracks. He sends Dane fake bank statements to make it look like all the finances are good and that everything is adding up. And as the years go by, he steals millions from Dane. And his wife is helping him do it, like this turd, Erica. And Darryl and Erica are spending this stolen money. They buy jewelry, they buy an $800,000 condo in Maine, they invest in a bunch of businesses like a hotel complex and a couple of restaurants. Darryl even racks up over $1 million in credit card debt just buying shit for himself, and then he pays that credit card off with Dane's money. And just in case all this goes south, he starts hiding hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash in the walls at his multiple homes he now owns. In total, it's estimated that he stole a minimum of $12 million from his own brother. And poor Dane, he's working so hard, he doesn't notice any of this money is missing because he believes these bank statements, and of course he trusts his brother, they grew up together. But then, Darryl's scheming all starts to fall apart. Because as Dane becomes more and more famous, he starts getting a lot more movie deals and stuff, including a movie with Kate Hudson, one with Jessica Simpson, another one with Jessica Alba. And so in 2008, Dane officially becomes a resident of California, and he starts having his taxes filed there. And as such, he has to find a new business manager in Los Angeles, one who's a little more experienced with that side of things. And it sucks to do, but Dane has to go and break the news to his brother that he's switching managers. But he says that he'll figure out a new job for him, keep him in the family business and help him out. Now, I assume Darryl acts all chill about this, but obviously handing over the books to someone else is horrible news for him. What if this new manager sees that he's been stealing all this money? And so eventually, Dane's new manager does his job and he hits up Darryl to hand over all of Dane's financial records. And Darryl starts acting really shady and he makes up all kinds of excuses as to why he can't do it, and this stalls things for a while. However, Darryl realizes that he can't keep this up for long. He needs a new plan fast. And so, in a panic, he starts Googling things like white-collar attorneys and how to hide money. And when that doesn't get him anywhere, he eventually realizes that his only option is to go on the run. And so, he and his wife, they start making plans to leave and travel the world. Then, he forges Dane's signature and writes one last check to himself for $3 million, and he deposits it into his personal account. Meanwhile, Dane's new manager hits up Dane and is like, your brother's ignoring me. And so Dane sends Darryl a stern message saying, bro, you need to FedEx those documents right now. And Darryl's like, I'm working on it. But he's definitely not working on it. Because 2 days later, Darryl and Erica hop on a 4 a.m. train headed out of the state. Then they rent a car and they drive somewhere, I don't know, they completely disappear off the map. And this disappearance is when Dane gets super suspicious, as he's finally starting to realize that his brother might just be a terrible person. And so he goes to Bank of America himself, because he's going to try to get into his accounts. But, as it turns out, he doesn't even have access to his own bank accounts. And when the bank managers finally do let him into his accounts, where there should be millions of dollars waiting for him, he sees there's actually $0 waiting for him. Apparently, Darryl cleared these accounts all out. And of course, this is devastating for Dane. How could someone so close to him betray him like this? This is probably some of the worst pain he's ever felt in his life. And so, he has no choice but to finally go to the police. Then, a few weeks later, police find Darryl in Massachusetts, and boom, they arrest him. And I don't have a mugshot for him, but here he is in court in handcuffs. Also, bam, they arrest Erica. Here's her mugshot. And Darryl pleads guilty and he gets sentenced to 6 years in prison, while Erica, she gets 3 years in prison, and they have to pay Dane back all the money they stole. So, good for him.